Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Lloyd with Fuse Hub, and welcome to session 4 of the Expert Finder Systems Conference. Session 4 is leveraging relationships in research information management. And what I'm going to do is go through some housekeeping tips in Remo, and then and Basika, you're welcome to join at any time. As you've seen, Remo is a virtual workspace with tabled chairs and an event stage along with video conferencing and online chat. To move tables, you just double click on any empty seat and then it will allow you to sit down and take that seat. If you hear a knock, don't be alarmed. That means somebody's sitting down at your table. You'll also see basic information such as first and last name by just hovering over the attendee's avatar and looking at their Remo profile. You can use the bar at the bottom of the screen to send messages to the entire event, all the people at your table, or specific individuals. During the Q&A section, please put your Q&A questions under the Q&A tab. I know it's tempting to put questions in chat, but usually there's a lot of noise there, people saying hello and so on and so forth. So if you want a question for that's the best way to submit those questions. If you have any questions or issues, you can find me, Kim Lloyd, or Carmi Greenwood through the chat to assist. I'd also like to take the time to thank our sponsors, Digital Science. These are our gold sponsors in Elsevier, and our silver sponsors, Libris and Clarke. So without further ado, Basiki Swilya,
thank you,
take
Kim.
It away.
We have excellent lineup of speakers and very interesting presentations. I just wanted to mention that there will not be a separate Q&A after the presentation. Instead, please post your questions and comments to presenters to the board called Q&A. And at the end of the session, we will hold a joint or group Q&A. So without further delay, we are opening the session with speakers from Oklahoma State University, Clarke Iakovakis, Macken, and Matt Upson, and they will present on a case study of library-led implementation of RIMS. Welcome, and you can start your presentation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let me get my slides shared. Okay. All right, so good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you here today. My name is Matt Upson. I am the Associate Dean for
You lost Matt?
I guess we lost Matt. Well, take over. Oh, here he is.
Are you seeing me now? That was strange.
Yes.
I'm not sure what happened. You're not seeing my slides anymore, so let me share those. Okay, can you see my slides? Excellent. All right, so again, it's a pleasure to be with you here today. My name is Matt Upson. I'm Associate Dean for Research and Learning Services here at Oklahoma State University. I'm here with my colleagues Megan Macken, who is our Digital Scholarship Librarian, and my other colleague Clarke Iakovakis, who's our Head of Scholarly Services and Research Engagement. And right now we are in the middle of implementing Symplectic Elements and its Discovery Public Profiles module here on our campus. And we just want to share a little bit about our experience so far and the importance of building personal, political, technological relationships in a process such as this, and talk about how our positioning the library as a mediator has benefited these efforts. So a little bit of initial context. 2.5 years ago, the library caught wind of a request by the president of the university to have more frequent and comprehensive research productivity reports. Now, the library had recently been positioned to have membership on a group of associate deans for research that regularly meets with the vice president for research's office. We had also at that time recently hired our first scholarly communications librarian, Clarke, and a collections strategist, and we were soon to hire Megan, our first digital scholarship librarian. So these new roles put us in a position to not only offer support to an effort to get more comprehensive reports, but in a position to lead it. So flash forward to present day, and we've reached a point where we've formally worked with 3 of our 6 primary academic colleges to provide initial orientation and support to get these individuals comfortable enough to navigate and curate their profiles. And we're planning to have the remaining 3 colleges work through our training process by the end of the year. And we also have over 200 profiles that have been polished largely by individual faculty members and have now been made public through discovery. So having a role on this Associate Deans for Research group and an immediate connection to the primary initiating party, the VPR's office, has allowed us an audience to use the structure provided in the OCLC position paper on the role of libraries and research information management systems by Dr. Rebecca Bryant and others. So we've been able to frame our effort around our expertise with publications, bibliographic data and metrics, our instruction and training skills, and so on. We've also had existing contacts and fostered new ones at multiple institutions who have implemented or were in the process of implementing a system like this. And that network has provided a good deal of context, informal benchmarking, and support that we could present to campus administration and other stakeholders. So as far as the perception of the library, like many libraries, historically we've been seen as service-oriented and filling support roles. We have not specifically been involved in leading campus-wide endeavors, but we had trust as a mediator. We are seen as a center place on campus, and we have many overlapping areas of interest and technical skills that cross campus. And again, the fact that we've been able to gain a seat in this Associate Deans and VPRs group has allowed us to make the case that we can and should offer more than just the traditional library services. And that gave us a platform to articulate those areas specific to research information management systems that we could manage. We were also in a position where there was no other obvious party on campus who could facilitate the project, who had the breadth of contacts and the interest. So there was also some of this built-in immediate reaction of, oh, someone's willing to do this. Let's take the opportunity. Let's go for it. Now, that being said, having never managed something that truly stretched across the breadth of campus and required buy-in to this extent, there was definitely some significant hesitation on the part of the library. We all know it's important to set some boundaries and limitations on what's expected of the library or whoever the lead unit is in something like this, as mission creep can easily set in. And this can be tough when you don't have some of these relationships already built up with those who will either be providing support for the implementation or who will be relying on the system for a variety of often unspoken purposes. And so we determined that much of our hesitation was due to a desire to manage these expectations, which we could argue can often be very difficult for librarians, since we're often positioned as service providers who are asked to perform certain tasks for rather than with faculty. And due to our desire, and I'm generalizing here, our desire to say yes often, difficulty saying no. So really this whole endeavor became an exercise in relationship building where we could approach partners who we had not worked with before, or maybe had only worked with in a limited fashion, and say, hey, we've got some big goals for this system. You can be a part of it. How do you want to partner? How do you want to share in this? And it's been very important for us to share in the successes that we've had, as well as take responsibility for any failures or any glitches along the way. And I think we've been able to do that by acknowledging all the different roles that a variety of people and units on campus have played. And we've been able to connect these disparate units and people across campus who may not have previously had formal working connections. And we've been able to foster a pace that is productive, but not I'm speaking for myself here, not super stressful, and hopefully not a breakneck pace. Quickly on the balance of brand management and the academic side of the house, I'm sure that it's the case at many of your institutions that the communications and marketing side of the institution can often be at odds with, or maybe not on the same page as the academic side of the house. And I don't mean to imply that these groups are actively hostile to one another, just that they have different goals and priorities in mind. So what we've seen so far in this process is that the implementation of the system appears to be meeting the goals of both areas. And again, we're still early in the process, and we can go into a lot of these details, but we all seem to be getting along well, and there's a shared excitement about how the system can be utilized and benefit all parties. I've mentioned this Associate Deans for Research group already, and being part of this group has put us in an ideal position to both be provided input from this group at a broad enough level, a high enough level for their specific colleges as to be worthwhile, but not so detailed that we get lost in the weeds of an individual department. Additionally, having them and their department heads, middle managers, if you will, serve as the drivers of college level adoption seems to be the best route for us to take, with some of these folks taking a similar stance as the library, in that if this seems to be a strictly top-down attempt from provost, the dean, just to quantify and package our productivity, there's going to be pushback. So having those middle manager leaders help out has been very valuable. And then this project has basically been the platform by which we have been able to promote our expertise and advance our goals in other areas. So we've established ourselves as capable managers and communicators, and have been able to articulate the broader role that we can have on campus and assert our values more effectively. Administrators and faculty colleagues are more regularly seeking us out for support related to ScholComm, impact, open access, copyright, author rights, digital scholarship projects, and so on. And while we had made some headway in those areas over the past 5 years or so, I'd say that the breadth of this project and the number of the faculty that it has put us in direct contact with has dramatically improved our standing on campus and really increased our meaningful connections. We presented to our faculty council on multiple occasions, and we've done our best to keep them apprised of activity, reaffirming our role and reassuring faculty, because there's obviously some understandable nervousness about this. And again, we've attempted to position ourselves as an intermediary between faculty and administrators, promoting the benefits of the system that can be derived by the individual faculty member and the department, rather than focus on the high-level reporting capabilities. And this is about recognizing that there are numerous stakeholders in the endeavor and tailoring messaging to obtain significant buy-in from all parties. So our position with faculty has been one of helping groups take ownership and helping them articulate how they want to use the system for their own purposes. We don't want faculty to see this as something that's being foisted upon them. And then finally, related to this, one of the values and concerns that we brought to the table was the need to support a broad understanding of research metrics and help reassure some departments who are not traditionally prolific in terms of producing the type of content that shows up in our automated sources. So we've consistently messaged one of our roles in this process as the ability to help an individual or department tell the story that they want to tell about their scholarship, which was something that we got out of very early conversations with Dr. Bruce Herbert at Texas A&M. And we think that we've earned more confidence in the project from those in the arts and humanities because we focused on this messaging, and we're doing everything we can to work with these departments to best articulate their unique areas of scholarship. And I think, especially since one of our project managers is also our digital scholarship librarian, has already supported their efforts in other ways that they know that they can trust us. So speaking of our digital scholarship librarian and project manager, Megan Macken, I will now turn it over to her. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, my name is Megan Macken. Like Matt said, I'm the digital scholarship librarian. I'm also the art liaison at OSU. And on the project team, I've been developing the data model and documentation for the Research Information Management, or RIM system, among other things. I came into the digital scholarship position with experience as a digital archivist and as a visual resources librarian, or what's sometimes known as a digital asset manager. In smaller specialized academic libraries, I had the opportunity to work across the digital lifecycle and across departments and institutions. So part of my responsibilities included original cataloging or creating metadata for images of art and architecture, like the portraits you can see on the presentation. Faculty displayed these images in art history classes and collected them for their own research. Later, I also managed a collection of linguistics field recordings produced by faculty researchers. So I'm mentioning this because in each instance, I work closely with faculty to capture meaningful data to configure a digital asset management and discovery system that met their research and teaching requirements, and to provide training for both faculty and students. And to populate the system, I managed about 20 staff and student metadata creators. Obviously, it was very important to streamline the database for efficient data entry and optimal data integrity. So I spent a lot of time configuring that. So we used this metadata schema with a relational structure and captured that data in a relational database. In order to share out the data and images with faculty and students, or to migrate to a new system, I flatten the relational structure and crosswalk the metadata and everything that goes along with that. So I did similar work at a historical society and in a congressional archive to supervise data creators and to incorporate data from multiple institutions into a single discovery system. So I collaborated directly with content providers, users, and IT professionals to present that data in a uniform, user-friendly way for teaching and research. So now, basically, I apply my experience shaping and mapping data for optimal usability to the research information management system at Oklahoma State. So I'm no longer managing digital assets, but research information. And instead of artists and artwork, we have faculty profiles and research output. So this broader experience of configuring a system and working directly with stakeholders like faculty, staff, and students has been especially useful in a couple areas in particular that I want to talk about. So first, my work with the IT staff of universities and corporations has come in handy. In this project, our data managers tended to be specialized. So mapping data from our HR system to the RIM system in the way that libraries are used to was somewhat unfamiliar to them. So I served as an intermediary between project contributors. So with the IT staff, I translated the data that we didn't actually have access to in the library into the RIM system. And in this project, university administrators have tended to think of us in the library as people with IT skills, but IT professionals see us as having other skills, particularly content knowledge. So it helps to have that broad experience to bridge some of those gaps. And the second way my experience has been useful is in understanding what researchers want in a system. As a digital asset manager, I frequently gathered faculty input, or it came in unsolicited, to increase usability and, more importantly, usage, because my success depended on adoption of the system. So in the past, working literally next door to faculty, I was aware of every aspect of the system that made it difficult for them to find images to display in our history lectures. So I have a lot of experience taking constructive faculty requests as real-life user stories or use cases, and then translating them into a workable data model. So now I deploy this knowledge to build out the extension and engagement, arts, and annual review portions of our research information management system with direct input from the researchers. So the biggest difference between what I've done in the past as a digital asset manager and my current position at Oklahoma State is that we are not providing content for the RIM system. We provide a place for the data, harvest as much data as possible, and make data entry as efficient as possible, but we don't enter the data. This gives us a little less control over the data quality, but also gives us freedom to shift our focus. I'll talk about that more in a minute. It creates a more flexible environment for the rollout. So each college can take its own approach to populating the researcher profiles. Some hire or repurpose staff, others motivate individual users, and others migrate data from existing systems. So rather than being swamped in data entry, the library has the opportunity to step back and get some perspective. Here I'm showing a bird's eye view. I don't want to take this analogy too far, but I'll just say sometimes we do so much intermediary work, we feel a little bit like passenger pigeons. But anyway, in this perspective gives us the opportunity to thoughtfully address topics that sometimes get short shrift, such as privacy, transparency, and representation. So we have some influence over what data is collected, presented, and reported. We can make sure community engagement has a place at the table. We can support alternative forms of scholarship in the arts, and we're positioned to promote the university's goals for collaboration across colleges. We can also work with specific groups like the Women's Faculty Council to ensure that labor that sometimes goes unrecognized is clearly represented in faculty profiles and annual reviews. So this shift in perspective benefits both the campus and the library, and our focus on developing relationships with faculty researchers remains the same. So hopefully there's time for Clarke now.
All right, yeah, I'll speak for here about 5 minutes. I think we got started about 5 minutes late, so would that be all right, Basiki?
Oh, I think that's fine.
Thank you. Matt, you can go ahead and advance all the bullets. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work we did, gathering and harvesting and adding data into the system and the ways that allowed us to build and enhance relationships with other individuals and stakeholders on campus. So one of the first things that we did was to gather Scopus author IDs and ORCID identifiers, which we did using their APIs, and in particular the R packages that have been developed as wrappers to those APIs that can really allow you to narrow down and filter out and be specific with your queries in order to get those identifiers. So we got a huge set of those, and then we did some fuzzy name merging with those to our HR data to hopefully do as best we could to map the identifier to the individual in the system. And then we fed those into the system to allow us to start off with a bulk set of publications. Now, there were some inaccuracies, of course, but doing a cost-benefit analysis, the benefit of having such a wide set of publications to launch with was offset the cost of having a few who had inaccurate identifiers. And we were able to run some reports after we added those to eliminate some of that. But really crucial here, as we started rolling out to faculty, this gave us an opportunity to talk about Scopus and talk about research identifiers and ORCID in general, prompting authors to merge if they had multiple Scopus author IDs, or ensure that all of their publications in Scopus were accurate, understanding what the function of ORCID was and really what the benefits. We're an ORCID member institution, so we're an advocate and supporter of ORCID, and that gave us a chance to talk about its function as well as research identity in general. Next slide, please. Okay, so we also we were approached by the provost to ask, can the system support getting faculty terminal degrees for accreditation? Now, that is, of course, it couldn't at first because it didn't have any data in it. But this gave us a chance to both meet their need as well as our need by developing a survey for faculty to have them input their terminal degrees and optionally any other degrees they may want to add into the system. So we created the survey form with that in mind and deployed it, and we had very good responses. It came out from the provost, and so obviously nothing's 100%, but it gave us a really good set of faculty degrees, which we then added in through the system's API. We also used the grid system, so that gave us an opportunity to get latitude and longitude coordinates from grid, so to look at maybe where do our faculty come from across the world. And this too, we worked with the Office of Institutional Research so that they could pull that data in the future. Next slide, please. The issue with position appointments and departments, really no authoritative data source existed for academic department. So we had to cobble together from a few different places in our HR system, administrative department, tenuring department. Position titles were abbreviated due to character limitations in the HR system. We required a start date in order to feed in current appointment. That's one of the conditions of the data, and that was either incomplete or missing. So this gave us a chance to work with HR and talk about some of these issues. And again, by they helped us out, we helped them out, and in the future we'll mutually benefit from that relationship. And next slide. And then I just have two more slides here. One is we use this system to pilot annual appraisal and development for one department. And that's been a bit rocky, as you can imagine, going from a paper system to a digital system, and especially in such a short time period. So I think that's a work in progress. And other departments have embraced the public profile system, which, as Matt mentioned, that has not been at the prompting of the library. That has really been kind of self-sufficient, self-driving. And just in the last couple of months, we've had 213 profiles go live. And last slide is just a couple of days ago, we had the VPR ask us, is there a way to get faculty scholarship on the coronavirus? And we developed a query in SQL. We Elements uses SSRS, which is a reporting tool, to create a custom report, and we made that available to them. So thank you all very much. And please reach out to us. We would love to talk with you either with any questions or suggestions. And you can see our public profile page at experts.okstate.edu.
Thank you, Clarke. And again, a reminder that we will have a joint Q&A session at the Q&A time at the end of the session. Now I'm inviting Jessica Clemons, Tracy, Elliott, and Danuta Nitecki, and they will present on how libraries can promote institutional research expertise and output. You can start your presentation now.
Hey, now I'm unmuted. Can you see my slides okay, Danuta and Tracy?
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Basiki, for that nice introduction. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And I also want to thank the organizing committee for putting this interesting and timely forum together. My name is Jessica Clemons, one of the account executives for Research Solutions with Libris, and we're very proud to be co-sponsoring this event. As we've been talking over the last few weeks, I think it's become obvious that the topic of finding experts, it's very interesting to us, and the importance of it cannot be understated, in my opinion. I've been learning a lot about this space during our time together. Finding experts is a task that is increasingly complex as we're learning. It involves a tremendous amount of stakeholders, both inside and outside the institution, and it requires a fair amount of resources. And perhaps now the stakes may not have ever been as high and as competitive in higher ed. So today I'm joined by Tracy Elliott, who's the Dean of Libraries at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida, and Danuta Nitecki, who's the Dean of Libraries at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And they're going to focus in on one specific stakeholder group. Oops, hang on just 1 second. I need to advance my slides. There we go. So today we're going to focus in on one particular stakeholder group. This slide was pulled from our keynotes presentation, and Rebecca did a really wonderful job really laying out the full landscape with all of the options and the stakeholders. And today we're really focused on the library and its role in this space. This forum has a strong mix of attendees from the research office, the library, commercial partners, and others, I think, which helps highlight some of the stakeholders who are more interested than others in this topic. But in general, libraries supporting this type of initiative is more rare than universal. I never would have guessed that if I were reviewing some of the presentations, but outside of this forum, that's generally more rare. Danuta and Tracy are here to share their own views and experiences with finding experts on campus and how their leadership has shaped local initiatives. And so my first question to the group is really for both of you, and it's, is this a space for libraries, and what is the vision that got you as individuals thinking about this?
And I think you want me to start, right?
Yes, Danuta, I'll ask you to respond first. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's quite all right. So I echo Jessica's comment of thanking you for including me in this panel discussions, not really formal presentations that we're going to do. And particularly, as she indicated too, the benefit I've already gained is just having conversations in preparation for this with the diverse perspectives. And I think that's one of the underlying benefits of this forum and this experience, and even listening to our last speakers. So with that in mind, I thought it might be useful to give you a little bit of background on what built my perspective. And so I wanted to give a couple words about Drexel and then sort of where I fit in this. So Drexel is a private institution of higher education. We have over 125 years legacy of really facilitating the secondary education as being a valuable preparation for citizenship and the workforce. We are especially known for our co-op experiential educational program, where students actually spend time in their professional field working as entering professionals with different groups. We began as the Institute for Arts, Science, and Industry back in the 19th century, and we became a university in 1970. And in 2018, we were given the Carnegie R1 status for highly active researchers. So in full disclosure, my library professional education began here, where I earned my master's degree in library science many decades ago. And I also come with a career working in academic libraries within very large research universities, including the flagship institutions at Tennessee, Illinois, Maryland, and I came here about a decade ago from Yale University. I suspect that this all has framed my vision in asking the question, how did I get to thinking about libraries in this position of expert finding systems and systems that could find experts? I think it's sort of a two-way thing on it. So about 3-4 years ago now, we had, maybe even longer than that, we had sought to replace the library's management system at Drexel. As many of you know, this is a technology that helps us do our functions, everything from procurement to providing cataloging access to managing our users' information to lend and share materials. And we had a really great working system. We had it for over 25 years, which is sort of unbelievable. But it was not one that was designed, its architecture would not allow us to basically expand into what we're seeing as the next sort of modern need. And that is to provide our community with more modern discovery functions, to go beyond just access to bibliographically defined items, to people, to events, to much more recently what we were focusing on is to include research output. And by that, it means a whole lot of different formats that we ever dealt with: data, software, images, as well as the publications and presentations for professional groups and the like, to the whole scholarly communication arena. And we knew that Drexel is not likely to create a single repository. We're not a development shop. The library is very lean and kind and human, so we're not lean and mean, but we are rather a small operation. Much of it also was that we saw that research would be, this output would be deposited not just in one repository that we could capture everything from our astronomers' data to social scientists' surveys of some sort of opinion gathering research project. So, so we were thinking they will be presenting and depositing this in a whole range of still evolving, but now we're seeing all of our major funders have developed their own research repository, particularly the government granting agencies. Publishers are also having mechanisms to require that data to be put out. And so we also had a recognition at that time that this output is not just the ownership of the researcher, but it's an institutional asset. It's an institutional asset that therefore there's risks to the institution not to appropriately manage it. And so with all of that, we're trying to see if could we find a partner that would help us deal with it. At the time, we did our due diligence of checking out. Everybody said, great idea, it doesn't exist. And then a partner did emerge, and it was Libris. This is not necessarily a product presentation, but rather where we were coming. So we thought that what we could offer as a library to support our university in improving our infrastructure is through this partnership to develop a layer of functionality to help find things, to do that discovery layer. And we also wanted to add the convenience for our users of integrating this into other discovery channels that people were using to find information. So It was the need to look at broadly across different places that our output can be found in the repositories, but being able to bring through the descriptors, through the metadata, through various aspects, an ability to find where is Drexel's output for all the things that our last speakers have talked about. Being able to do analytics to project what our strengths are, branding, profiling, and the like. So I think I'll stop with there, but that's sort of what got us in today.
Well, great. I think to add on to that, I think for my background has been at regional universities, public regional universities, and prior to that to community colleges that have taken on missions as four-year institutions. And prior to Florida Gulf Coast University, I was at San Jose State University, and they were a comprehensive doctoral granting institution. And they were growing massively their research component. And there were a number of opportunities that I had. I think libraries have always been in this space. I think, first of all, we need to say that for years, we have been collecting and making accessible the faculty research and student scholarship that has been happening on campus and making it accessible to the world, right? To elevate the scholarly identity of our faculty has just been something that we've been doing for years and years. And I've had the opportunity as a dean to be in spaces, in the right rooms at the right times, to hear the needs of our institutions. So there's been times where I've heard deans say, I don't know what my faculty are doing. I don't know the research that they're doing. I don't know the scholarship that they're producing. Deans have said this, deans of engineering, deans of health and human sciences. I heard the president say, I want to know the return on the investment of the faculty release time that we're providing and the money that I'm putting into the infrastructure for chem labs and biology labs and cadaver labs. I want to know where that money is going. I want to know that it's worthwhile. I've heard the vice president and AVP of research say they need analytics for grant writing and for reporting. I've heard a vice president or associate vice president of communications say they want to know what is newsworthy about the research, innovation, and creative activity that's happening on campus. And every single one of those times, I've been able to say, the library can help with that, right? Because we do have that expertise. And we can use the tools that we've been using for years to help provide that information to those different divisions on campus. And why do we need to replicate? Why do each one of those divisions have to have something that competes with what the library can provide? And so that's why I believe that the library has a place and has a space, and a very important space, and we have the expertise for that. And so I've just been lucky that as a dean, I've been able to be in those rooms and to hear those needs, and that my colleagues have agreed that the library has a place. And so that's why we are in that space, and then we are positioned to be able to provide that assistance to those really important areas on campus, and that they're allowing us to work with them. And it's a different place for us, because traditionally we have been the keepers of the information, and we've required people to come to us and ask for the information, and then we've served it up. And now it's different. It's a new paradigm for us, because now we're creating systems that are open to them. So now we're sharing dashboards with the provost, and we're sharing a dashboard with an associate vice president for research. And then they now are telling us what needs to be in that dashboard, so that they can go in and they can look at it. And it's no longer a report that we're generating for them. They're now being able to look at it themselves. And so it is a different space for us, but it's really important and it's really exciting. And it elevates the work that we've been doing for years. And if there are any other libraries that are out there that are not considering getting into this space, then they're certainly missing an important opportunity.
And I think you both have not only do you have a very interesting perspective, but you also represent the fact that this is happening, like this topic is really interested regardless of the institution, because there's a lot of research activity that's happening and there's a lot of investment in that, whether you're in the M category or somewhere in the R or at the top of the research intensiveness. And that makes me think, since, Tracy, you're newer to this space, you're newer to the job. Danuta, you've been working on this for not a long time, but some time. What expertise does the library have? And you mentioned that a little bit, but really, where should we expand into? Or where should the library expand if they need to bolster these efforts or start in this venture? And also, what's unique and should be included in these collaborative efforts? So kind of like the people, the skills, and how these pieces fit together.
I think leveraging a lot of what we already have is really important. So I think that it isn't really too much emphasis on what we need to add. I think certainly if your library doesn't already have people who understand the role of some of the tools that we have, like Oklahoma State just made a really great presentation of how you take a digital archivist and use those skills to develop a relational database for a faculty profiling system, right? Or a profile system. I think that's a perfect example of using those skills that somebody has on developing a relational database and understanding how to create metadata in order to raise the profile of the faculty, raise the scholarly identity of the faculty, because you want to leverage tools that drive more attention and more traffic to the great work that your faculty and students are creating. And that is what libraries do. What we're trying to do is help people get easy access to information, to the best quality information. And our faculty and our students are creating the best information. So we're helping each other. We're creating this ecosystem as libraries by elevating the best of information and quality that is being produced. And so our librarians and our staff within our institutions, our libraries, are leveraging tools that are existing in order to be able to drive users of information to that information. And so things like, getting all of our faculty to sign up for ORC IDs and use those ORC IDs when they publish, right? And then making sure that our systems are using ORC IDs and we're leveraging those kind of things. And also negotiating author rights and open access and making sure that the institutions are licensing and managing and creating tools that disseminate the products of higher education intellectual capital. So those are the things that libraries, if they're not already doing, that they could be doing with the expertise that already exists, and then expanding on that, bringing more people in that can do that within the libraries. So taking those experts that already exist within your organization and then just refocusing them like they did at Oklahoma State, right? The examples that we just saw just a few minutes ago.
So I may just build a little on that. I certainly agree with what Tracy's saying, but coming from an background of looking at organizations and our own individual kind of, when we have a large research libraries, they tend to be siloed in terms of where the expertise lies. So, we have this tradition of the tech services behind the scenes and the public services ahead. And I think if you look organizationally what libraries do, the expertise is definitely there. As Tracy points out, we organize, we preserve, we curate collections of information resources, and then we facilitate their discovery, their retrieval, and their ethical use, all of the stuff that our information literacy experts do, and trying to get that done. We're also, as mentioned, we're comfortable with systems. We've been using systems and technologies since before they were discovered in many cases for our own operations. But I think the other thing, which as you were talking, makes me remember this too in terms of our own settings, librarians do partly what Oklahoma is saying. We have a character of being trusted. I think that often comes in, and that we're Switzerland. We work with everybody. We're not just favoring one over the other. And with that also means that we tend to have skills and the personality to facilitate collaboration. And that is really what's needed here, because you need partnerships across various other disciplines and expertise that we don't have within the library organization. In our own institution, we were trying to get this going. We looked at who could help sponsor this and be our key thing. And it wasn't the Office of Research. It wasn't really even the provost. To my surprise, it was the compliance office, because they saw some of the things as risk. Then it became the Office of General Counsel, because they were seeing the need for records management was related somehow to this. And then research came on board, and graduate studies came on board, because they saw this as helping to prepare folks, and et cetera. So I think that's one of the things we do. And where do we need to expand, though, our expertise? I think having more of our librarians remember and refresh all of those professional skills that we have to bring it into the new kind of work. So, for example, I was surprised with one of our senior librarians. We were saying, well, in this, how can you provide it? And I said, it's the whole understanding of metadata. Oh, I don't need to know anything about metadata. That I'll refer them to someone else. But I think this is where we're crossing over the boundaries of where expertise needs to be applied. And the other thing I think is, as a whole, librarians need to expand is an understanding of that research cycle, publishing cycle, the creation of research. Because before, service was looked at, we find it, we match it with your need, we deliver it to you, and we say, are you satisfied? And we had a whole movement of assessment of service quality, right? But now we have opportunities, and we're getting into it, particularly with this, of helping disseminate, of helping publishing, and many of the things have been said. So I think we need to better understand those cycles in our own field as well.
That's so well said, Danuta. Thank you. And I also think that it's helpful too for libraries and librarians to step outside of the library professional development world too, right? We need to do things like this, like Jessica, like you said, the participation rate isn't just librarians in this forum, and we need to attend more things like this so that we can learn what the needs of our universities are, because I learn more about what my library needs to be doing, not from going to library conferences, but from going and stepping into rooms around campus and learning from them what the library needs to be doing. So I think everybody needs to be doing that. We need to be learning at other conferences about what the needs are and what the cool things are that our faculty are doing, so that we can figure out how they need to be supported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So related to that, I'm going to skip the next question, because I really want to hear, well, I want to make sure that we stay on time. And I definitely want to hear what you think the biggest challenges are that you've seen or that you've experienced in the expert finder space, and what ideas do you have to overcome them? Because I think you started getting there at the last response there.
Yeah. So maybe let me kick this one off and give a quick high-level kind of responses, since we don't have much time. So I think one of the things I'm experiencing, having moved from a different kind of organization to ones here, and talking to other people at different types of libraries, and in different kinds of universities, I think that's what we're seeing, is that there's an institutional value to invest in this. I totally agree with our colleagues from Oklahoma State that said the way to get it to implement it is to have a groundswell, work with the faculty and not require it from top down. However, if you don't have also a high level agreement and perception that there is value in doing this at all, you just aren't going to be able to pull it off. And the organizational level, not even just the implementation from the library. So I think that's one of the difficulties that at least I feel sometimes we're facing, of how to get this organizational change at the universities level, that this is of value. And then with that is looking at products and tools that those of us who are not in the position to just create it for our own institution, is to look how, and this is where libraries have a long history of working globally. So we create standards for things, and not just because we like to have rules, but because those can help facilitate sharing of information and being able to transmit it, and also having an ability to have platforms that will be integratable with other platforms. So we have system to system communication as services, as well as just to our individuals. And so I guess the other thing is I was talking with somebody before we started this, that we don't really have yet, there's maybe not a market out there for really creating this kind of integrated finding systems that would allow us to not just do it for profile. There's ones for profiling, there's ones for promotion reviews and all. And our institutions often think that's what's needed, and not looking at what's the infrastructure for how you manage the data, organize it, and the stuff that libraries do to then apply to these different ones. So I think that's a tough one. And strategies, ours has been to find a partner that also saw that as a potential vendor, but I'm not sure, looking more globally, how long it'll be before we can actually get to the point that that's just a given. Everybody doesn't think about it.
Yeah, I think, Tracy, we've got about 2 minutes.
I agree with Danuta that I think that the biggest challenge is the lack of a vision. And I think that finding that partnership both on campus and with a development partner that shares your vision or has a vision or can help you develop that vision, right? And so agreed, you have to have someone on campus that's willing to help you take that risk and is going to take that risk with you and invest in that risk. And you have to have a development partner too, that for those of you vendors that are online, because there's probably more of you in this group than there are for those of us that are helping to pay your salaries. So we need for you to be willing to take risks with us too. So hopefully those of you are hear that, because there's going to be a lot of that, where this is a new space and it's really important for universities. It's extremely important for all of us.
Well, I think Basiki coming up indicates that we are out of time, and I just want to thank you all for listening, and thanks Tracy and Danuta for sharing your thoughts. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, panel, for interesting discussion and conversation. Our next speaker is Jeff Agnoli from Ohio State University. He will present on the Ohio Innovation Exchange and leveraging partnerships. Welcome, Jeffrey, and you can start your presentation.
Thank you. Really appreciate everybody. And the last session, that was great. While I'm bringing up my presentation, I think I got a lot of stuff going on here. I just want to acknowledge the program committee and thank them for giving us the opportunity to share Ohio State's story with all of you. I'm sorry, the state of Ohio. That's a slip. My day job is with the Ohio State University for 30 plus years now, so you'll forgive me. I've been a part of this project since its baby stage, when it was just an idea and one of our state of Ohio administrators. This is more in the teenage stage, and now we're moving or young adult, maybe college age. So it's exciting for us to share our story with you. Our take on these expertise portals is really about partnerships, really trying to help our faculty engage with industry and business as much as possible. And so it's a public portal into that. We like to think of our portal as a utility that you should be able to split the switch and find expertise and resources and equipment. We're going to get into some of the specifics there in a minute. But these are the 6 universities that took the plunge and agreed to say yes and shared their data with us. We have a few universities in the wings that are watching closely and considering joining the process. Case Western Reserve, if you don't know, is up in Cincinnati, in Cleveland. It's a private institution. Cleveland State, Ohio State University is in the center of the state. OU, or Ohio University, is down in the southeast. Akron is closer to Cleveland. And then Cincinnati is along the Ohio River, right on the border of Kentucky and Cincinnati. So it gives you an idea. We were fortunate to secure a grant from the Ohio Department of Higher Education for the Ohio Innovation Exchange, which we just refer to as OIEX. And in that grant, we were able to secure funds to develop a robust marketing plan. That was new for us. We had some marketing efforts, but this was a much more in-depth effort. A plan to build out the corporate and campus engagement. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we partner with our libraries and what the plan is there. Integration with other state of Ohio initiatives. There's several things going on across the state, and we wanted to use this opportunity to kind of bring in the Innovation Exchange and partner with those other programs that are out there. And then lastly, everybody's been talking about dashboards and visualizations and reporting. We wanted to be able to make the data more accessible, not only to institutions, but to the public. And so that's a new component that we're building out with some help from grad students. Our marketing plan includes all of the following. I won't get into every detail here, but one of the big things was sort of a launch of the Innovation Exchange. We're moving to a new product from our partner, which is Symplectic. We were previously on a version of Dimensions, and now we're moving to their product known as Discovery. So it was building out the web interface, the user experience, and some of that. We've built out our email campaign and identified the partners that we want to work with most. We've built out promotional materials. It's a massive social media campaign. Some of you may know that Ohio University has the Scripps School of Journalism. It's one of the best in the country. And so we were actually able to get an undergraduate student who is certified in social media and help teach us older folks some of the techniques and methods around building that out. Many presentations and partners. We've also, a new player in the state of Ohio is a group called OhioX, and it's all about promoting technology across the state. They have many industry partners as well as higher ed partners, so they become a new partner for us, and you can check them out at OhioX. And then also outreach to the existing programs that the states run, like Jobs Ohio, which is really about bringing jobs back to Ohio. And our entrepreneurship service providers. So I'll get into a little bit of that. This gives you an idea of Ohio's, the state of Ohio's emerging ecosystem for commercialization, technology, innovation, and so on. Ohio's IP Promise is an initiative directly out of our Lieutenant Governor's office. And it's really about trying to communicate the university as a partner for innovation and entrepreneurship so that companies can see what that looks like in the past, what it looks like in the present, and what it can look like in the future. And that's great that it's coming directly from the executive branch of the state government. Rapids is a program that's been around for a little while, and this is really about introducing young people to careers in technology, as well as technical manufacturing and things like that. So it's a program directly at the post-secondary school, which we love because it starts out that pipeline, that early career, introducing students to jobs and things like that. We have another partnership with NSF's I-Corps program. If you're not familiar with I-Corps, it's really a way to bring together faculty, grad students, postdocs, and to sort of scale up their commercialization, develop a business plan. It's an educational program, it's a coaching program, and the state of Ohio built a partnership with NSF and allows us to run that program for the state. We also have engaged our economic development partners, our entrepreneurship folks, and the platform, the Ohio Innovation Exchange, is really just one more tool in that whole ecosystem. And that's been a little bit of a flavor change in how we're marketing the platform. We're trying to feature those partnerships that are already in existence, some that are a little bit more mature, and let people see where we're going and how it fits in with some of the other programs in Ohio. This is just a list of the economic development networks across the state. And the next slide kind of gives you an idea of how they're broken out regionally. It's a coordinated network. They communicate with each other. And our role with the Innovation Exchange is to try to present that platform in a way that serves those regional needs. And engage with these people, work with them, help them to see the opportunities that are available. A unique asset, obviously, one of the unique components of the Innovation Exchange is that we have expertise. That's a given. We decided long ago to include our academic and research equipment and services. So our platform allows you to search not only for experts, but also for research equipment, services, and tools to guide that partnership. It's all in one place. We've also added patent information with the help of our development partner, Symplectic, as well as grants data. So we can show people the kinds of funding that folks are bringing in. We call it version 2 because we went live back in 2018, and now here in 2021, just this week, in fact, we publicly launched version 2. And these are some of the features and functions. Free robust searching, there's no fee to access the tool, there's no required account. It's mobile friendly now. The discovery module that we are using allows you to search with expertise tags. You can search directories by institution to look at equipment that's in your neighborhood, or you can just search for equipment and services writ large across the state. All publication information that you're familiar with other expertise portals, patent information, and so on. And there's a nod to our Symplectic folks. And I just want to acknowledge the great partnership. Jonathan Breeze, CEO, and Kate Byrne, who leads the Elements implementation. They've been fantastic partners. Can't say enough about them. So when we talk about maximizing our partnership with innovation, the goal really is to connect faculty directly to industry if they're interested. So there's a big if there. So if a faculty member desires to work with industry or has a track record of that, we indicate that on their profile so that companies can see that someone has already worked. We use a criteria of something like X amount of dollars over so many years from private industry contracts as a way to indicate that partnership. We also communicate the availability and research instrumentation, and that's done through our marketing campaigns, the kinds of tools that you can license or lease or send in samples and those kinds of things. And then obviously the intellectual property and patent opportunities and licensing. These are the 4 showcases or approaches that we take, really making information accessible or democratization of the data, showcasing the industry partnerships, again, through the marketing and promotions. So it's not so much about the platform, it's more about what the outcome is, what is happening, what's the science partnerships that are going on across the state. Looking for ways to partner with our economic development colleagues, and then workforce opportunities for our students. Each campus has designated an industry liaison partner. So sometimes it's the industry liaison office, sometimes it's the economic development office, sometimes it's a person who has multiple roles at the institution, but those folks represent the partner, the direct line into the institution. So they receive notification if somebody inquires on the site about an expert, a piece of equipment, a patent, and their design or their role is to triage those requests and get them out to the appropriate person. A couple of examples I'm going to share with you of sort of the kinds of marketing that we use, because I think it's helpful so you can see. A company called Estellis is set up with Ohio University. The issue was as older adults age, we lose strength and mobility and have more accidents. And so forth. So one of the experts at Ohio University in it's going to be too hard for me to say musculoskeletal, so we'll just go with Neurological Institute, was to partner and look for ways to do some clinical trials on muscle functions. And so just a great example of a partnership with a company. Another was one of my favorites. This is with Ohio State and Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus. When a child is born prematurely, they're often put in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, and don't have the regular access to their parent's voice. So one of our experts, Mary Hoffman Pancake in engineering, designed basically a speaker that could record a parent's voice, or the parent could speak to their infant if they're not allowed to visit for whatever reason. And just the child being able to hear the voice and engage with their parent in another way allowed both the parents a little less stress, and the child was able to show some positive outcomes as well. And so the Dino Egg is now a patented product. These are some other companies and partnerships across the state. I'm not going to go into all of them, but every time either a spin-off company or a company partners with higher ed, as it matures, as it moves down the commercialization pipeline, we pick up that story and promote it through the Ohio Innovation Exchange and link back to our site. University of Cincinnati has a fantastic sort of, I guess you could almost describe it as a hybridization of a maker space, an innovation space, and an industry residency space. It's called the 1819 Innovation Hub. And it's a way for students, faculty, and industry to partner. And if you don't know the city of Cincinnati, it's headquarters of Procter & Gamble, one of the largest companies in the world. And this is just a fantastic program. Similar universities now, I think I've seen lots of makerspace. Ohio State's getting one in the very near future. But that's an example of how we would promote how to access our experts, FaceTime, partner with people, access facilities, equipment direct, as opposed to just virtually. Here's some examples of our media coverage across the state of Ohio, whether it's newspapers or journals or some of the trade publications across the state. Other incentives fall in the area of economic development. And so the state of Ohio offers several incentives to help create jobs or to grow a company. And this is just some examples, whether they be tax credits or loan funds or development grants. Obviously, the more that you're able to do or promise to the state, the more funding is available to you. So these would be programs that, again, we would market and promote and then link back to the Innovation Exchange. So getting ahead of this innovation curve is one of the challenges that we think about all the time. Like, what do we need to do next to kind of keep the platform moving? We partnered back, I think it was 2017, 2018, with Professor Irina Lundell from Cleveland State University. And she did a fantastic study on best practices of creating Innovation Exchange web portals across the states. This study is available, and if anyone's interested, you can email me and we'll send you a link to that. But it was a viability study to say, if we implemented one in the state of Ohio, what would be the best practices? What would be some of the approaches we should use? And we learned a lot from all of the people on this call and are part of this organization, the Expert Finder Systems. Some of the discovery we learned started that web portals need to be a public good. Remember, I started the presentation saying they need to be like a utility. You should be able to flick on the lights and learn what's going on without much effort, without any back and forth. We also learned that universities are collaborators. Obviously, this is not something we've learned. We've learned and know that universities catalyze economic development, whether it be jobs or research dollars or economic output. And so that needs to be part of the story all the time as a reminder to the public and to industry to kind of get that out. And that marketing is almost best done, not at a statewide level, but more regionally because of the networks that exist in each part of the state. And they needs to be tied back to business so people can see how their company might be able to partner with higher ed, kind of walk them along or give them the breadcrumbs to see that. So here's some examples of fantastic programs that have already gone before Ohio State, before the state of Ohio. Fuse Hub, which we love in New York, so kudos to Kim and her colleagues. The Michigan Corporate Relations Network, and of course the granddaddy of all, or grandmother of all, ExpertNet, which I think has the longest longevity in the country. So we've learned a lot from that. How OEX is different is we really are seeking out incredibly diverse feedback, whether it's from our academic partners, government officials, the ED offices, or industry. The goal is really to push the state of Ohio's innovation and commercialization efforts, and I mentioned some of those earlier. We're looking for all the possibilities and all the ways for entrepreneurs to kind of establish a foothold with their business. One of the other ways that we're approaching the campus engagement is through our library partners. And so I think it was my colleague, Tim Kane, who's on the call today, who came up with this great acronym, or Jess McIntosh, who's currently working with us as well. But it's LEAP, which stands for the Library Engagement, Advocacy, and Planning Task Force. This group just got off the ground. And here's a quote from our friend Rebecca Bryant and colleagues about the importance for libraries to partner. I'm going to move through this because the last presentation did a great job of talking about library partnerships. But what we really want to do is we are asking all the participating institutions, so the 6 I named previously, plus those that are thinking about joining the Innovation Exchange, to send a library representative and help us work through some of these kinds of questions. How do we connect with academic departments and liaison groups? You can think of liaison groups as centers and institutes, for example. How do we expand beyond bibliometrics and scholarly communication? How do we help faculty measure their research impact? And then lastly, how do we promote collaborations with institutional research and corporate engagement? So we're asking the libraries to help us build that out from the ground up, dialogue with us, identify ways that they already partner, and the last presentation is going to be great fodder for that. Here's some of the tasks and things that they'll be working on. They'll learn how to explore the platform. They'll get sort of high-end access to be able to run reports and things like that. They can pilot different kinds of toolkits at different universities and beg, borrow from each other. They'll serve as a primary channel of communication for their campus. Look for other ways to engage, whether it's university communicators or the Economic Development Office or the Office of Research. We're going to explore scholarship opportunities for librarians where they might be able to do some research and get papers from some of their partnerships, and then ultimately provide a final report. Some of you may know the state of Ohio is arguably one of the greatest library systems in the country. We also have Ohio Link, which is a collection of all the higher ed institutions. Anything in any collection can be shared from institution to institution through Ohio Link. It's a pretty magnificent system. We can tell you more about that. So I rushed through my slides because I wanted to finish on time, which I think I did. Here's my contact information if you have any questions, and a link to ohioinnovationexchange.org if you want to check out our site. Let me stop sharing, and I believe I am allowed to have a couple questions before we go on to the next thing.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.